koto, tēnā koutou, many nui kia koutou, aloha lava, I might say. And a special kia rana to the person who has such a fine Cook Islands welcome this morning. So g'day, I'm Glen, General Manager at FSANZ. Who's heard of FSANZ? Some of you. Good. I started work in marketing and public health as a health protection officer, and I've made my way through various regulatory agencies, did a bit of work for the food industry once upon a time. When I left MPI 3 years ago, I said I was going to work for FSANZ, and there was quite a number of Wellington public servants who didn't know what FSANZ was. So that I found that quite staggering and really interesting. So I'm actually going to take a wee moment just to introduce FSANZ to you properly today. I also want to describe some of our key activities and what I describe as from the regulatory front line and the war on sugar. And I want to share some closing thoughts with you as well. So thanks very much for the opportunity to be here with you today. I would certainly like to acknowledge Sue Chetwin, who is, as many of you well know, the CEO of Consumer NZ, but she's probably less of you know that she's a board member of FSANZ, so one of my many bosses. Welcome, Sue. I don't feel any pressure whatsoever. So an introduction to Te Mana Kaunga Kai. Ahi Tereiria me Aotearoa. So about us, oh, you can't see that, I'm afraid, so I'll take you through that. So we're an independent statutory authority. Essentially we make the rules around food for both countries, Australia and New Zealand. So we make the rules in terms of food labelling, we make the rules in terms of food composition, what food can be called, how much stuff can be in it, etc. So a whole lot of very technical rules which we compile into something called the Australian New Zealand Food Standards Code. And it sometimes seems like a bit of a code in terms of the way it's then interpreted. It's essentially the blending of science and law and policy. And it looks like English, but in terms of the way it's interpreted and implemented, we find that sometimes there are certainly some differences around that. So we're certainly committed to plain English. The code's a legislative instrument. In New Zealand, it's given effect through the Ministry for Primary Industries in terms of the day-to-day enforcement of it. It's also enforced by councils, about 67 last time we checked. So they employ environmental health officers who are in food shops checking on rules, etc., such as food labelling. So although technically we're an Australian entity, we're established in a trans-Tasman sense by something called the Food Treaty. Right, there's a food treaty between Australia and New Zealand. It's not a treaty you hear much about. We like to think, you don't hear much about that treaty because it's working well. So why do we exist? We exist essentially to contribute to the collaborative food regulatory system between both countries. We set evidence-based standards, we provide evidence-based advice, and we coordinate regulatory responses and provide information about food standards. All good so far? I hope you'll agree. So our goals are a high degree of consumer confidence in the quality and safety of food. It's essentially our purpose. Out of setting these standards, out of having them enforced, out of engaging with policymakers about those rules, our overall goal is to improve confidence and trust in the food supply. So the joint goals of the food system. For the first time in history, apart from our board, there is a bunch of ministers who sit over the top of this joint system. The New Zealand minister is actually the Minister for Food Safety, who's involved in this particular forum. That's the Honourable Damien O'Connor. Now he's one of 10 ministers that sit around this table. He's got 9 Australian counterparts, 8 for each of these Australian states and territories, and 1 from the Commonwealth. So Minister O'Connor sits around this table, and for the first time in the history of the trans-Tasman system, they've actually conspired to set 3 goals or 3 priorities for the system. And terribly sorry about the text for this, particularly for those of you down the back, but essentially, first goal is around reducing foodborne illness. Not much interest of today in that subject, I imagine, but the third one is around maintaining a strong, robust and agile food regulatory system. That sounds exciting, doesn't it? But the second one, which you can't see, because you've got a technology issue, I'm very embarrassed about it. So, but the second priority is around a priority for the food regulatory systems should be to support public health initiatives that support the reduction of chronic disease related to obesity and overweight. Okay, so out of three goals, we've got one that relates very much to public health. Now you have a food regulatory system essentially to protect public health and safety, but this is, I think, quite a big step forward in terms of ministers clearly articulating expectations for food regulators in terms of the purpose of their activities to support public health. Particularly to call out obesity and overweight like that, I think is quite significant. So this is a very simple diagram in terms of how we do our work. It's essentially the Codex risk analysis framework. It's used by all the best food regulatory agencies around the globe, and we consider ourselves to be up there with the best of them. On the left-hand side, you can see that there's a risk assessment circle. Essentially, that's about contemplating, considering the overall weight of scientific evidence. We must take into account the best available evidence when we set a standard. We had a lot of talk already today, haven't you, about evidence. You've seen some studies, but what we do when we set standards, we evaluate the overall weight of science. So it's a pretty comprehensive process. We do systematic reviews from time to time. We prefer to look at other people's systematic reviews because systematic reviews take an awful lot of time and brain power. And so what we do essentially is assess the overall weight of evidence. On the right-hand side there, we have a number of other things to take into account. And this is the job of the risk managers in the agency, of which I head up. So essentially what we do is we stand between scientists and people like Sue Chetwin who make the decisions for us. So essentially what we do is we take the science, we consider, by law we have to consider a number of other factors when it comes to setting a standard, and those things include, for example, international requirements. They include the economics of any particular standard to be set in terms of cost-benefit analysis. They include the views of various stakeholders. We publicly consult when we set a standard. And so we certainly take on board all of those things. And so essentially take the science, apply policy law, community expectation via consultation processes, cost-benefit, economics. We weigh all that up, and then we provide a recommendation, neatly packaged in about 200 or 300 pages for a coordinator like Sue to pour over and make a decision on. And so the third component to this risk analysis is really important. It's something that we always need to improve on. That's the risk communication aspects of standard setting. We need to engage right throughout the process. And so from that perspective, it's been really good to be here today to listen to more detail about this war on sugar. I want to outline what we're up to right in a minute in terms of sugar labelling policy development. So hopefully some of you are aware of this, but FSANZ, in combination with the Australian Department of Health, is actually leading some policy development work at the moment regarding added sugar on labels. So the policy problem, as articulated to us by ministers last year, was that there is not enough textual information on a food label to enable informed choice in terms of supporting people's adherence to dietary guidelines. So the dietary guidelines in both countries talk about populations reducing their intake of added sugars. So the starting point being that there's not enough information on labels, and we have this year consulted on 7 different options. One is status quo. We tend to do that as policy setters, standard setters. We always consider doing nothing, and we basically gauge the effectiveness of other interventions against that option of doing nothing. Education on labelling information about sugars was the next option. Then 3 or 4 that considered specific variations in terms of changing food labels. They include reorienting the ingredient lists to ensure that all sugar-containing ingredients are lumped together and called out in that ingredient list. Added sugars quantified in the NIP. So that's the Nutrition Information Panel. You're really familiar with that. I'm sure you will pay great attention when you're in the supermarkets to those. The third option was around putting an advisory label on foods high in added sugar, so perhaps some sort of a warning statement. And the fourth option considered as some sort of pictorial display regarding the amount of sugar, so that could be something like teaspoon labelling. We think the seventh option is really interesting too, mainly because we put it forward, but it's essentially this idea that you can put a QR code, one of those funny square digital things that you scan with your phone, and it takes you off to a website, and from there you get access to whatever information you want. We think that's interesting because it's being promoted as a scheme by the grocery manufacturers of America, and it's really engaging consumers in some of that detail that they want to see. Essentially, a food label is a highly contested piece of real estate, perhaps more contested than real estate within the Auckland business. And yeah, there's certainly a great contest about what should go on what is a fairly limited piece of real estate. So that public consultation occurred August, September, and right now staff in Wellington and Canberra are analysing the more than 400 submissions that we received as part of that consultation. So certainly some real live action from the regulatory front line, as it were, in terms of added sugar labelling. What happens next is once we've complete analysing those submissions, we'll then recommend some options to ministers and probably go into implementation towards the middle of next year on that. So yeah, things do happen. Sometimes we're criticised for taking too much time, but essentially you've got to get it right. There's no points out of 10 for setting a standard that hasn't been adequately considered and essentially generates some unintended consequences. We're particularly keen to avoid that, so hence the amount of time and effort we do put into it. There's a slide you can almost read as well. So the next piece of work that we're undertaking in terms of sugar is we're looking specifically at reduced sugar claims on alcoholic beverages. So has anybody heard of Beer the Beautiful Truth? Seen advertising around beer being 99% sugar-free? Yeah, okay, so that essentially is currently arguably allowed under what we consider to be a bit of a loophole in the health claim standard 1.2.7. So that health claim standard permitted it was set in 2013, and in the market at the time were a bunch of low-carb beers. And so we looked at that and thought, well, we decided that permitting the ongoing use of low-carb claims in the marketplace was a good idea. So we gave the alcohol industry essentially an inch, and unfortunately now some of them have taken a mile, the proverbial mile in that regard, because of course sugar is a carbohydrate, and they've kind of taken this permission around low-carb claims and kind of extended it in their own minds to low sugar claims. So of course have really done this in response to the war on sugar. And we seem to be able to, as a community, as a society, we seem to be able to focus on one nutrient at a time when it comes to nutrition. That's appalling. Somebody was talking about fat 12, 15 years ago. Yes, it was fat 12, 15 years ago. It was palm oil 4 years ago. I do wonder what's coming next. Perhaps it's salt's turn again. But yeah, enough. I got on my soapbox there, and goodness me, I'm not said I'm not supposed to have opinions. Yeah, so essentially, ministers have said 99% sugar-free claims on beer is not good enough. We think that misleads consumers, particularly because it's focused on sugar and not energy. Right? You get also the energy out of alcohol as well, and so. Yeah, we're taking a close look at that, and we'll be consulting on that in the first half of next year. Just one other aspect in terms of the war on sugar is that we're starting to see an increasing number of intense sweetener applications. So as new ingredients in the food supply, intense sweeteners need to come to FSANZ for assessment. Certainly do a safety assessment, and if there is a toxicological endpoint associated with consumption of those products, then we will set particular limits. We'll consider whether or not they're indeed suitable. So we've set some, recently approved some more variations on the stevia glycosides, which are very much in the marketplace. And a couple of weeks ago, the board agreed to also a new intense sweetener from something called monk fruit, which has had a long history of use in China. So these substances are, many thousands of times sweeter than sucrose, and so therefore deliver the taste profile that manufacturers believe consumers are looking for without using sugar. So certainly, I think some key developments there. Of course, we look at the safety of these substances as that's step one for us, and certainly we wouldn't approve any unless they were deemed to be safe. So, like I said at the start, this is really all about confidence and trust in the food supply. It's why we have organisations like FSANZ, it's why we have regulators who enforce these standards, it's why in setting standards we really do signal to industry what we expect, and 99% of the time that then gets implemented by industry. So I've talked about the war on sugar, and I like to think that wars are kind of unproductive. We just celebrated 100 years since the end of World War I. We thought that was a great idea. The war on terror, how's that going? The war on drugs. Do we actually win anything when we use them? Can we couch things we oppose in these sorts of terms? So I'd like to think that in terms of the overall battle for, the bigger game is really trust and confidence of consumers, and we've seen to be, in the last 2 or 3 years, focused on sugar. And like I say, I think in terms of the advice that we get is that the likes of Professor Sir Peter Gluckman tell us that it's not about nutrients, it's actually about diets. That's where we need to be focusing. Demonising nutrients, probably not a popular thing to say here today, but demonising nutrients, in my view, gets in the way of building trust and confidence for consumers, and it gets in the way of consumers understanding what they ought to about nutrition. However, that's not to take away from the good work that's being done, but I think that we need a more holistic solution. And Jamie, the chef, said, the evidence is there. It's interesting that we're now taking advice about evidence from chefs, but that's just my view again. Sue, this is not FSANZ perspective at all, but I think, right? I don't know. But certainly in terms of trust and confidence in food, we're required to strive for a high degree of that amongst consumers, and this is data that you can't quite see, but essentially this is a graph from our own work in terms of consumers' trust in food labels. What it's got up the left-hand side is a percentage, and starting from the left-hand side, it says strongly disagree, right through to strongly agree. So what the graph actually shows is that, and strongly disagree with the statement, generally speaking, I trust the information on food labels. So generally speaking, I trust the information on food labels. So what the graph actually shows is that 2/3 of Australians and 3/4 of Kiwis agree, or strongly agree with the statement that they trust the information on food labels. Now Jeff Parker might well in a moment be able to explain to us why less Australians trust food labels than Kiwis. There's been some suggestion that it's got something to do with the high proportion of Kiwis who are able to read, Jeff. I couldn't possibly comment. That wasn't my suggestion, it was just repeating what I've been told. But certainly there's a bigger question here. It's not about Australia and New Zealand, it's about is 2/3 or 3/4 of consumers having some degree of trust in food labels. Is that good enough? Really? Is that good enough? And perhaps even more importantly, in what direction is that level of trust moving? So we certainly hope to answer that question over time. I will leave you with something from one of my ancestors, the great Scottish philosopher. Not every day you meet a great Scottish philosopher, but this is David Hume, who was around in the 1700s, the 18th century, the great philosophers, and he believes, and I actually added to this quote, I gender neutralised it. So that's my contribution to it. But a wise person proportions their belief to the evidence. He also said a number of other things and actually significantly advanced our understanding of the impact of our environment, our psychology, and the way we view the world. But one thing he said, which I think is really important, and that is, it's when we start working together that the real healing takes place. It's when we start spilling our sweat and not our blood that we make progress. And that's something that I'll sort of really highlight to everybody. I think if we're going to make progress in this space, we need to work together. And if we're going to make progress, as somebody, I think it was Jamie Oliver, the great curator of evidence, he said that we've got to do hundreds of things if we're going to fix this problem. We need to fix this problem, we need to work together. And so in the last couple of days, in terms of, thinking about coming here and presenting to you, I was thinking, well, what can be done? What are the practical things that can be done? And there's an overwhelming amount of brain power in this room. And you've heard that what we value most of all, apart from particularly public health and safety, is in fact that we are an evidence-based standstill. So everybody thinks they've got the evidence. So what I would say is that anybody can apply to change the Food Standards Code. So if you've got specific goals around what the food supply should look like, then I would encourage those with particular views to consider applying to change the Food Standards Code. Not our rules, they're your rules. So that's what I'd encourage you to do. So thanks very much for that, folks. And in closing, I'd just like to point out that we are on Twitter, we're on Facebook, and we're on LinkedIn, and I would strongly encourage you to come and find us and follow us, please. We think that there's a great place in the universe for FSANZ and our dispassionate, perhaps views than mine, which we publish from time to time, which we think are critically needed in a world that's increasingly filled with less than accurate information. Thanks very much.